Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Developing the Leader Within. I'm your host, Enrique Acosta Gonzalez, and today I have Eduardo Ibacache Rodriguez, my counterpart all the way in Europe, sharing his day, his evening, actually, with us. And we're going to be talking about leadership and well-being, a very important topic. 2020 has definitely put a press on what the word definition of well-being is, and we're going to discuss that tonight. So, Eduardo, thank you for being with us tonight.
Gracias, Enrique. It's a pleasure. I have been really looking forward to come onto your show. Actually, I really enjoy your episodes, so it's a pleasure.
Thank you. So we're going to get into this because it is firmly at the forefront of everybody's mind. I know that I personally have dealt with a challenge in well-being, and succumbed to the effects of a strenuous and very stressful environment. So I'm looking forward to hearing not only your talk about well-being, but the story you're going to share with us. And I believe that one of the most important things is to truly define what well-being is, right? I think that's a great starting point. So I'm gonna hand it over to you, and we'll go with the discussion.
I think like well-being for me has like nothing. It's not like something that is only related to like the workplace, right? When I talk about or lecture about well-being, I'm talking about I say like well-being at life, well-being at work. That's like the two expression that I talk about, because well-being is like how do you feel, like how good do you feel where you are, like doing what you're doing, like are you feeling good, like are you like productive, or you're like the opposite, or you experiencing stress, anxiety, and I know a lot about because of my history, like my walks on life. I know a lot about well-being, like how it can like like destroy, or how it can pollute negatively environments, either if it's work, or if it's like in society or in life, like we came to Sweden when I was 5 years old, and there was a lot of like races when I came there. It's like it's nothing that we have today. What we have for me is that's like buying a happy meal, like it's nothing compared to when I came, like we had like Nazi skinheads, like that was the fashion among a lot of the youths, and for me, like a person of color, I didn't feel good in that environment. Like my well-being was damaged, like I felt a lot of uncertainty. I was afraid a lot of the time of like what will they do to me, and if you take this into work, like for me, like even in a family you have like well-being, like how are the children feeling, like how is the well-being of the family, and usually what we have is that maybe we don't have a functional culture, a culture that is empowering, a culture that is inclusive, a culture that makes people grow and communicate, instead of fighting and having animosity to each other, they should be supportive, and that's usually the case when you talk about well-being at work. It's the same, as I see it, is that the only way you can target well-being at work is the same through life. You need to create a good culture, and that is what I believe is a lot of companies are not doing. They're not understanding that culture should be a strategy, because culture is the most powerful tool you can use. It's more powerful than money, actually. You can you can pay people, like to a certain amount and treat them badly, but then after, like if you're continuously doing that and paying them, like I don't know, like better than anybody, it doesn't matter. Like you will lose the best people, right? It's so simple, people this is what I believe. I call myself a humanist. And when I say like a humanist, I'm a humanist, I say that I really believe that all people are equally worth. I really believe that all people should have the opportunity to have the liberty to choose their life, their religion, or like freedom of speech. And I also believe that they should have the right to be in a safe environment. Like people should not be harassing each other. People should like treat each other good. And that's not the same as being than having discipline. You know, like having order. We should not mix apple and how you say
Oranges.
apple, yeah, and oranges, right? Like you can have a lot of hierarchy, you can have a lot of like discipline, you know, and demand on people, as long as the environment is empowering, you know, like we're part of something, and that is what people want to be, you know. People want to be encouraged, people want to be listened to. It's so simple, and it goes to anything, like to a family, like your children. It's the same thing, you know. And this is something that I usually debate with people, is that for me, like work, that's my second family. I see everybody very important when I go there. Like I don't see like, oh, now I'm at work, now I only care about myself. If everybody did that, no company would grow, right? You need to care for each other. And that is why I love talking with you about military leadership, right? Because a lot of that principles applies actually to a company, you know. Anyways, like speeding fast forward, I was in a lot, my well-being was very like negative, you could say. I felt a lot of stress, anxiety growing up because of all these things that were happening to me. And when I in 98, when I entered university, that was like you could say, like I started to work almost immediately, like freelancing. uh, and I started to, like, I founded a company, and the first thing that we did is actually start, we discovered the thing like with values, because we had really good mentors that taught us the thing with values. And I'm a person that read a lot of books, not so much anymore, but when I grew up, I had to hide in the library from the bullies. So I started to read, and I read for years, already as a child, you know. So I know a lot about history. I know a lot about like philosophy. I know a lot about a lot of things, you know. And the thing is that the more knowledge you get, the more you can analyze things, you know, from different angles, right? And try to see some kind of at least something that everybody can align to. And what I had concluded that I can align to when I started a company was that if we don't have if we can't create a safe haven of empowerment, of inclusion, of humanism, meaning that a leader or any person in the company is just a human. Like they have the right to have bad days. They have the right to maybe suffer in life because they divorce, or you understand, is that if 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 you can like focus on the human, and have like a human centric driven organization, doesn't matter if you're a startup or if you're a bank. I think that's the only way to go, and that's the only way to target the well-being, actually. Because what I discovered, like running a startup and having like strong values, and having this kind of camaraderie in the company, that everybody should be there for each other. Uh, what I discovered was that when I entered big corporate and started to work for them, I realized that it waters out the bigger you get, you know. Like all startups, they need to have that in the beginning, you know. And usually startups don't have so much burnout. Usually when they have is because they have people that are, how can you say, or they were going too much, you know. They were working themselves to death, you can say. And that is another thing that is very important to understand, is that the amount of work that you do is not in correlation to a burnout. Actually, it's more about in the environment and the situation that you work, that is what can cause you to start to stress. And usually that is like how a burnout starts, is that you're starting to not feel good, it's not like, oh, I like my body is hurting. It's more like it's come from within, it's like you start to feel stressed, you start to feel like having anxiety. You can't sleep, for example. You're going to sleep less and less, and the more this thing continues, the bigger is the chance that the brain and the body will say, like in Spanish we say basta, it's enough. You need to change something. And usually when it comes to company, like when you're in a corporate and we're talking about well-being, and you're like in a brink of burnout, it's usually something behind, it's maybe there's a manager, like a micromanager, that is causing this situation for people, or maybe like the whole environment per se is maybe not good for you, it's not what you would like to do in life. Maybe you should do something else, and that is what is so difficult with well-being, that there is no magic bullet for everybody, everybody needs to find out what is the reason that I'm not feeling good. It could also be yourself, something inside you. Maybe you have some like maybe you have something that you need to treat, and maybe go to therapy. Maybe you need to talk about something that happened to you before, that you have not dealt with it. There's many reasons that could trigger a person to start to not feeling good in life, either is it work or so. What happened to me actually was that I started to sleep less. uh, I came to the conclusion that if I could sleep less, I could work more. And also another thing that I had was that I haven't worked with my inner peace. Like my mother died when I was 20, and that was hard for me. Like I started to get depression, and I got them for almost 20 years actually, before like 7, 8 years ago that I could get rid of them. So I had a lot of things that I haven't I just worked, I'm a workaholic. I'm still today, I work a lot, but now I don't work in in stress. I don't work in negativity. That is the reason I can work like I do today, and be productive and not burning out, because I have realized what works, what don't work for me. It doesn't mean that this will all work for everybody. Some people, they need to be like all the weekend in the nature, for example. That's their magic bullet, some other people, they need to, I don't know, do mindfulness. Some people find it in spirituality, for example, maybe like be very active in their church and their community, everybody needs to find an anchor that could take you back into this feeling, that you're the opposite of stress and anxiety. Like it's an individual thing to find out. So it's very hard to advise people and tell them you need to do this and that. The only thing I can say, and I think nobody would disagree on this, is that if you're experiencing that most of your hours during the day you're in deep panic mode and stress, then the opposite, you need to take a break. You need to sit down and analyze like what is going on. You need to figure that out before it's too late, because when it's too late, that was what happened to me, that I let this go on for so long time that suddenly my brain and my body just said stop. I couldn't go up. I haven't been sleeping for almost 2 weeks. I was sleeping like 2-3 hours per night, and I was yeah, like I couldn't grasp all the things I was doing. I was doing a lot of projects at the same time. I was trying to solve this here. I was like, oh, I didn't get this funding, I need to solve that. I was doing too many things at the same time. And then I started to get negativity, because one ball fell down, then the next one fell down. So it became like this chain of negativity, right? And one day I couldn't get up, and it's like it's hard to describe, but you go so fast down that you go down into a depression. That was happened to me, at least. I think most people, like when they do a burnout, they get a depression. Uh, and my depression was like the deepest I ever had. Before that, I had like this kind of yearly depressions, but usually I just worked them out. I maybe partied more. I did more activities. Just to get past that month that I was having every year. But this time it happened, I couldn't get out of bed. I wanted to get up, but I couldn't get up. Like it was like, and the depression and anxiety I got was like, let's say, like if you don't never experience a clinical major depression in your life, that is like, imagine like the worst anxiety you had, like maybe you lost someone or something like that, and then you can multiply it with, let's say 100, and it doesn't go away. It's there every second, every hour, every day, maybe for a month. And I had it for like 8 months. Uh, and my father, he came to pick me up from the apartment, and I slept on his sofa for almost 8 months in a clinical depression, and that was hard. Like, uh, just some months after, I'm like running company, I'm like starting a new venture, I'm invited to dinner to this like high society, like family, because I was like in the newspaper. I was like, yeah, I was very like engaged in the entrepreneurial community at that time, in Sweden, so everybody, like a lot of people knew who I was, and for me that was like, I felt very ashamed, and that was when I realized that that is the problem, that people don't want to talk, that they're suffering because they are ashamed. Like, you're ashamed to say, I'm a leader and I'm having this period that I'm having a depression. Like, who do you say that to? That is when, for me, became this kind of revelation, because I went to my therapist at the time, and I asked her, like, am I the only entrepreneur having a depression? Am I the only entrepreneur sitting in your stool? And she looked at me and she said, like, in that chair, we have like board of directors, we have CEOs, we have all these fancy people. Some of them, Eduardo, and we have a lot of entrepreneurs, she said. And I said, but why is not anybody talking about it? She said, stigma, Eduardo. Nobody wants to be seen as weak. And that annoyed me so much. Like, I got so frustrated, because like I told you, I always went to my books to find answers. And I was looking for the book that told me, Eduardo, I fell down, I lost everything like you, and I built myself up again. It's doable. I couldn't find hope. All the books I found was people that were still depressed or were still not like fully back, right? And I was like, if there's so many people in the world, and another thing I discovered is that burnout is most common among entrepreneurs, leaders, like people that are high achievers. It's have the highest percentage of, not only that, highest percentage of anxiety and depressions also. So I decided there and then, when I was talking with her, that if I could come back to a level of society where people listen to me again, I would speak, I would speak. And I will write a book. Actually, the book is coming next year, So yeah, like I done the journey, So it's that's it feels amazing that I'm now realizing what I told her, and I learned a lot of things, that I could talk all day about that. I can just give a short glimpse of what I'm writing about. Is that routines is very important for people, The more routines you have, the better. And that is why when you meet people like that know a lot about children, they will tell you these things with routines, right? And we didn't have so many routines in my home, so I didn't inherit that. My father was always out with his politics. My mother was trying the best that she could do, but she was suffering with her health. So it was like quite chaotic for me. So I didn't get that. So I became like that also. That for me, routines, it was like, I ate when I was hungry. I slept when I wanted to sleep, not because I needed to sleep. So that was like the first thing that I learned. And then I learned that that sleep is actually very important. So what I do now is that I take my sleep very seriously, and I worked. This is how I work actually. I wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning. Now I have a dog, so I need to take out the dog. I prepare food for the children. Then we try to send them to kindergarten, like latest 8, 7 if it's possible, so they can eat breakfast there. And after that, I start to work, and then at like 4 or something, yeah. And during the day, I take out the dogs, stuff like that. And then I get the children, and then as long as the children are awake, I avoid touching the computer and the phone. I do that, and because I'm there only for them as when they are awake. And as soon as they go to bed, maybe at latest 8, sometimes unlucky at 9, then I start to work again, and then I work until 12, and that's or 11. So working a lot it doesn't mean that you will burn out. Is what are you working with? Or like the work I do is positivity. I do a lot of everything I do. I want to do, and I like to do it. Then it's not about hours. But if I were doing the same job with things that I don't like, or with leader that is mistreating me, I could not work like this, right? It would be impossible. So and so yeah. So but anyways, what I learned is that if you sleep, doesn't matter how hard you work, if you really sleep good, there's a higher chance that you can come back on track, or you should try to have a sleep routine anyways. Like that's the best pill you can have for healthy living, actually, is taking care of your sleep. And for me, I was doing the opposite all my life, right? It's like, and then another thing that I learned is that you have an outer self and you have an inner self, and like the inner self, that usually who you are, and most people, they don't live that life. Most people will live the life of others. We live the life expectation of society, what we should become, expectation of your parents of what you should become, and we feel shame to talk about our feelings, because that is how society is built, that is how work is built. And the more you oppress your inner self, it means like, how are you feeling? Who are you? What do you want to do in life? Maybe you want to be a clown and your father is a doctor. That's like the classical one, right? And everybody has been doctor all their life, and then you come and you want to be a clown, right? And then it creates this pressure on you, to be a doctor because of your father. And for me, like, it doesn't matter what you are, like, be happy, like. And for my children, I'm teaching them that, I follow what they like to do. I don't, like, if my son wants to be like, I don't know, like total the opposite of what I am. If he said like, I want to clean the street, my dad, and every weekend I want to hike, do it, like. What can I say, because you want people to be happy. Yeah, if you really love your children, you want them to be happy. It's not about that titles and all these kind of things. They say nothing, and that is the problem, that we pressure ourselves, we pressure children, we pressure our work colleagues, we pressure people, out of expectations that maybe they are not. That's another big reason for a burnout. Like, your inner self will revolt sooner or later. And another thing that I learned was that the brain is programmable. Actually, it's like a computer, like cognitive behavioral therapy is one expression for that. And that means that many of the things that you do, like behaviors that are maybe leading you to this kind of situations all the time that create stress, you can actually train them away. The only problem, it takes a lot of time. Like, military has done a lot of research in like, how can you say, like behavioral change, and it takes a lot of time. But you can stop smoking. You can stop eating junk food. You can unprogram yourself, everything. And I did that actually. I stopped drinking. I was drinking for. In Sweden, people start to drink when they're like I don't know, in their teens. They start to without the parents knowing, but that's the culture. And the culture is that you work hard and you drink all weekend. Like, that's Swedes in a nutshell, or Vikings, I would say. Like, Denmark is the same, right? So I did that for a long time, but what I did is that I took that also as self-medication against my depressions, So I was drinking a lot, not by myself. I was like, I'm a social person, so I went out to party. I went, so, but anyway, I done that for so many years, So I didn't know how to do it differently. I didn't even know how to be social with people in a club without being intoxicated, because that was how I trained myself, So when I met my better half, that we have children, like. She said to me that if you want to be with me, you need to stop drinking. And I did that actually. I stopped and I went cold turkey and I didn't drink for 2 years before I tried my first beer by mistake because they give me a strong beer by mistake, right? In a restaurant. So and then I drink sometimes, but like socially maybe, but very, very, very seldom, And so you can train away something with will, but you need to have determination, So, and that's the thing with well-being, that things that you do maybe is causing you your well-being, maybe you're a yes person that need to please everybody, and you put yourself in these situations where you're starting to stress because you have promised him that, you have promised her that, you have promised your wife this, and you have promised your children that, So, and I was also that's that's a fact. I was a yes person before. Now I'm being more picky with the yes, And I had to train that away. It didn't. When I realized that that was one of the causes of my well-being not being where I wanted it to be, I started to train that away. But it took time. So it means yes, you can train away behaviors. It just takes time. And mindfulness, I would say, was like my biggest changer. And the thing with mindfulness that is so interesting is that like human. This is like for everything I say, or like when I find things, I always want research behind it. Like at least when I'm talking to like statistics, right? And there's a research done about people's like how positive are we, versus how negative we are. And the research showed that almost 50% of our thoughts could be categorized as disrupted. It means I'm between two things. Like I'm sitting at the computer and somebody say, "Hey, Eduardo, come here." Now, for me, shifting from that focus, like eagle eye focus, to another eagle eye focus, uh, if you accumulate all this time, it's like 50% wasted during the day on these things, like being in between stuff. You're like not like having the eyes on just one thing very clearly, right? And 80% of our like thoughts could be considered negative or doubtful and negative. It means maybe I don't trust that, maybe, or I don't like that person, or like you read the news and, oh, I don't like that president, and now you're angry, right? So it becomes negative. I avoid reading so much news nowadays, actually, because I also realized that it triggered me into this kind of thing, right? Like, do I choose this side or that side? But I'm a humanist, and for me, it's like all are humans, like why are they fighting? Like, come on, let's join together and solve problems instead of fighting. And the 90% categorized thoughts is the most, yeah. Actually, 90% of our thoughts could be categorized as repetitive. It means we're thinking the same thing as yesterday. Yeah, I could talk all day about that, but yeah, like I need to address well-being at work also. But that's the thing with well-being at life, as I call it, is that I think every person should try to find their well-being, like to get to know themselves, and to read about everything like psychology and like how does this work and why, so you can understand like other humans better, because often like well-being is always also related to other humans, not only like a workplace is still about humans. You're not working with robots. Like you can't blame C3PO, you know. It's like it's usually more people involved, right? So yeah, and also spirituality is very, I'm a very spiritual person actually. Like if like go to use your religion, like go into, take breaks, you know, like be with your community, like pray, do all the things, you know, that let you come in contact with yourself and feel more like aligned with other people, you know. And that is what I think is very important, that maybe we are not doing in our society today. It's very like ego driven. It's like this, everybody for themselves, you know. And I don't know that, I think that is not the way. Actually, I think we should have more community thinking also in outside of work.
Well, you shared basically everything you need to know about well-being there. But the caveat to all of it, and the points to all that you've said, is that you have to know yourself first, your limitations, what you're going to allow in and out of your life, whether it's at work or at home, because some people, they thrive at work because they're escaping home, right? Or vice versa, they actually thrive at home because they're escaping work. But a complete well-being type of scenario, or an ideal, is that you thrive in both areas, both at home and at
Yeah,
work, and everything is in line with ensuring that you are the best that you can be at all times. And I think you mentioned something that was very important, which was environment, right? So environment, and when you talked about a micromanaging manager, one that creates a tense and stressful environment, there's no, and the reason why I bring that up is because I did suffer under a micromanager, the which, it's funny, I had mentioned this earlier today, the which I chose to fire. And somebody was like, well, how do you fire your boss? You leave. You you leave. That's how you fire your boss, right? You got a bad leader and you can't work under them, leave. If you can afford it, fire them. And I don't understand. I do understand that there are a lot of monetary and financial situations that where you just can't just pick up and go, right? But if you can, then fire them, because your well-being, you know, if you drop dead at your job, they're gonna hire somebody else. They're not gonna memorialize your position because you were such a nice person. They're going to say, okay, we're sorry that they're gone, but we need another body in there. And so that's what's going to happen. So take care of yourself, know your limitations, know what you are willing to uh, endure, because a bad circumstance or a bad environment, you are enduring that. You're not surviving that. You're enduring it, and enduring is a very painful process. And usually that's what happens with the breakdown, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical. And sometimes both mental and emotional turns into physical, because that's what happened to me. Uh, and you have to learn how to make well-being a priority in your life, in every area, right? Because time management is something that I like to uh, iron out, because if time starts getting away from me and I feel like things are all over the place, I guess I start getting stressed, and then I say, hey, something's got to stop, something's got to go. We need to fix this. So thank you for sharing that intense history and story about wellness in your life, right? Being well, the state of being well in your life. And for those that have been listening, uh, take good care of yourself. This year has not been as joyful as many wanted, right?
Can I respond to something that you said?
Yeah, yeah.
You said something like about like you need to start with yourself, right? And the reason for that is that if you start with yourself and you can implement a person that like live the inner self, like who you want to be in life, right, you will be happy, you know. And when you're feeling like not only like about happy, but you will feel fulfilled. And when you feel good inside, it's easier to treat other people good, you know. And then it's easier to form a family, right? And then you can create an empowering family, and you can teach them this thing, you know, like we're here for each other, you know, and I'm here to support you. And I'm concerned also about your well-being. And then when you go to work, and if the workplace is like a workplace that take value seriously, and they work with company culture as a strategy, as I said they should, then you don't have all these things like micromanagement and stuff like that, because you understand that you need to have autonomy. People need to be self-driven. We can't have micromanager. Then you remove them. Then you have a value about we should treat people good, you know. And then if a leader misbehave, then we remove them because they are going against the values. Today, companies don't measure. That's what they can't do anything. Now, if you're working now in this place and people are mistreating you, when you come home to your wife and you have built this family, you know, of trust, what you will do is that you will be another person, because she will notice like you're irritated, because that is what happened when you get this kind of thing, you know, like with anxiety or stress, because people are not treating you good, right? Then she will ask you like, how are you feeling, you know? And then you will ask yourself, how am I actually feeling? And then maybe you quit that job. So that what you said was so important, because that is how you should do it, you know. So then you have this kind of safety nets to how you say, capture yourself with your family. They will catch you, you know. Hey daddy, you're not as before, you know, what is happening? Then you will catch yourself, like, what am I doing? Like, and then you can change your life, you know. But when you have nobody to talk to, it's more difficult, right? So you should try to build this kind of network, like your uh, build good relations. That's what I say. It's most important with your family, with your relatives, uh, on LinkedIn, like you and me, right? I feel I could call you tomorrow and say, you know, Acosta, I'm having this problem at work and I feel bad. I feel I could do that, you know, because we have built that relation. And today people are not, they are like going from work home to Facebook, on Facebook to the news. People are online constantly, you know, with their brains on something that they can't control, instead of talking to people.
Yeah, and that's very important. That
Go to church, be
human,
in the nature, like.
yeah, human to human, get in your zen, how they say, right? Get in an area where you feel safe and you can recharge, and take good care of yourself, because I know that the year is not done. The 2021 is not as promised as before, right? It looks like things will carry over. This was your the last 7 months, 8 months were a training ground to re-educate us on the things that are important. I really feel that it was a huge pause in a lot of things, so that you can recognize what's important. Family, and well-being, and taking care of each other, and loving more, and compassion. I've seen a lot of that come through because of the situation of people in hospitals and dying, and dying by themselves. These are things that tug at the heart, just mentioning them. And so I know that there's a lot of things that have been going on, not only in the health front, but Puerto Rico's been in earthquakes since December last year. It's almost going to be a year of constant earthquakes, and we forget that, right? Or the category 4 and 5 that just went through Central America. Those people are devastated. That's on top of Corona, right? so there's a lot to be on people's minds, on people's hearts. So in terms of well-being, reach out to folks, get with a group, speak to people, find a safe haven, a place of safety for yourself, so that you can not only endure but you can survive and then thrive, right? Because that's the process that we want you thriving in every area that you have in your life. So Eduardo, thank you so much for the information you shared, the story that you shared. I'm sure that undoubtedly a lot of people are going to be listening and saying, "Man, that's me. Oh wow, I'm right there. Man, I need to do that." So thank you so much for sharing that.
De nada, amigo. Un placer.
All right, folks, if you want to reach out to Eduardo, how would they do that?
LinkedIn, I'm like LinkedIn nerd, like the rest of us, right? And yeah, like LinkedIn, or you go to eduardo.live on the browser and you can come to my YouTube channel. That's it. And gratitude, compassion that you said in the end there is actually the first thing to start with. I would say, like, try to have some more gratitude and compassion in your life. And I train that. It's not something we just get. I'm still training on that, actually. Every day I try to have it.
Yeah, folks, very important. This morning I talked about humility as a leader, and humanity requires compassion. It requires it, and if you want to see the best out of humans, uh, hand out that compassion, and you'll see the best out of them. Folks, thank you for being with us. Thank you, Eduardo, once again, and you know how we like to close this out. Success to you.
The same. Thank you, man.